Hello and welcome to the April Q&A, because it's April now. Hopefully you guys are getting this on time. There's a lot going on right now that we can't talk about, but I hope you get this on time. We've got some questions inside this iPod. We're going to answer them. First question is from Toshisan, and it says, Mal, when you first met Stephen for realsies and saw he was the 6'6" tall giant outside of Holy Ranch Balls, I'm So Nervous, what was your first impression?
I thought you were really cute.
Oh, really is cute.
Mainly it was, wow, you're tall.
Yeah. Well, see, I remember talking to you and you saying that you kind of expected me to be that tall.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, oh, wow, you're tall, but it wasn't like, oh, I'm flabbergasted. It was more or less like, yep, seems right.
Yeah.
Was that a good... Mm-hmm. I really wish that that I was vlogging back then, because there's so many things.
That would have made everything more awkward.
Oh yeah. Like, in one aspect, I'm glad I wasn't, but I wish that I could see everything that happened. Although I can still see it in my head. Like, I remember sitting in the chair. When I came out. And this isn't even a part of the question. When I came out of the airplane, I got into the airport, went to the baggage claim. I was expecting her to be there the first time that we were gonna meet, and I was like, oh crap, she's gonna like sneak up and be like, whoa, hey, and then we're gonna meet. And I was like really nervous, like looking around, and then I called her and she's like, no, I'm like 15 minutes away.
Milwaukee traffic.
And I was thinking, maybe this is a trick, but then she didn't come out, and I was like, oh, okay, so it's not a trick. And I was sitting on the edge of a row near the baggage claim,
looking out the window,
in a chair, looking out this giant glass window. And I sat there and waited on her, and then eventually she tapped me on the shoulder, and I looked up, and there she was. And then we got married.
And what'd you think?
What did I think of you?
Yeah.
It was mostly, I don't think I was nervous. I was
nervous.
I think it was mostly excitement. It was like, holy crap, I really like this person, and now I finally get to meet them in real life. And then the awkwardness of, this is really awkward. Worked out okay. Anyway, I won't spend
the most awkward car drive ever.
Yeah, especially because it was like a two and a half hour drive. But anyway, let's answer all the questions. Hockey Monkey 11293 says, Stephen, you and Mal are from different regions of the country. What are your favorite things about your respective regions? I'm from New England, and from watching StephenVlog, I know I often find myself noticing restaurants I've never heard of before and some dialect differences. What's your favorite thing about your respective region?
Well, restaurant Culver's. Cheese.
Meh.
And the other thing that I really miss is just...
Packers! Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I don't know. Everyone in Wisconsin is just really nice.
What?
Not saying like people here aren't super nice, but in Wisconsin,
I'm sorry.
people are
You preceded that question, or preceded that statement with
something I really miss.
Yeah, you said something I really miss. The people in Wisconsin are really nice.
I don't know,
but
like,
the people are pretty nice.
For example, where I came from, like walking down the street, everyone would say hi and wave, but it's not like that here.
It is like that here.
Not as much.
No, it is like that here. The problem is, in Myrtle Beach, you have a melting pot of lots of people and
lots of tourists.
And the tourists don't do that. But the southern hospitality trumps Wisconsinite hospitality. And I'm not even saying that people from Wisconsin are rude, because they're not. And I've been there, and people are generally nicer than other places I've been, but not nicer than southern hospitality.
Okay. But everyone I've met that has southern hospitality are people you've known, so they're not strangers.
Okay, anyway, my favorite things from my respective region. There's a lot of things I guess I don't like about the South, but there's a lot of things I do like. For one, my biggest reason for wanting to stay in this area, besides the fact that Mal would lose all of her retirement fund, and also my parents live here, is the weather. I love warm weather. I'm completely and 100% totally adapted to warm weather, and I could not leave it. the minute I cross the Mason-Dixon line, I'm heading north. I'm done. I'm like, what happened? I mean, the vlogs should be out at this point from PAX, and to witness me in the Boston weather is...
And it was like in the 30s.
And I don't do well with that. When I went to visit her in Wisconsin in the winter, I don't do well with that. And we're going to go back to Wisconsin this winter, and I'm like, oh God. Like riding around in the car with the heat on, in
with
the car,
gloves.
with the gloves, and not being able to feel your toes and saying there's something wrong. Like, honest to God, when we were in Wisconsin, like I didn't feel my toes at all. At all, like the entire time I was there. So weather is my favorite thing about this region. I really love Southern food. I've learned to love all sorts of food, and I love all sorts of food, but Southern home-style country buffet food is really good. It's not good for you, and it'll kill you. It'll kill you so fast. But I really love that type of food. Otherwise, I'll probably just end it there. I'll probably just say weather and food is my absolute favorite things. I love the people. The people, they really are hospitable. They're nice. You do have a weird situation when you're in Myrtle Beach because you're dealing with a lot of tourists, so there may not be the same people. It might be a situation when you pass by and you're like, hey, and they give you a mean face. They're not from South Carolina. They're from Ohio.
Or Jersey.
Or Jersey. I just made fun of that. Now people will be like, hey, I'm from that state. Just fill in the blank with some other state. Except Wisconsin. Because the people in Wisconsin are nice too, darn it. We gotta move on. We're really checking this out. But to be fair, there's actually not a whole lot of questions this month. So, that's why. Next question. Deacon for the win. Would you guys, if you could, adopt Thomas?
I think we're in agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would. Actually, we talked about adopting Haley in the past. So
that was so funny.
So we would adopt Haley, and then we would adopt Thomas, and they would become siblings.
It's really weird.
That is really weird. I'm going to stop thinking about it and move to the next question. What is your favorite number? Asked by ThePokeKirby. Is it 8? Okay. Just making sure it was 8. Because last time I remembered it was 8. Why do you like 8 so much?
I think it's neat. It's upright infinity.
Oh, okay. So the visual appearance of the number.
Yes.
Mine has always been 3, and I have no idea why. I mean, I remember thinking, what is my favorite number? Like when I was really young. And it's always been 3, but I don't know why. I have no idea. It carried over well whenever I got into Pokemon at a young age, because my favorite Pokemon was Venusaur. But I'm not... See, I almost wrapped my mind around this the other day, and I was like, was my favorite Pokemon Venusaur? Or was Venusaur just number 3? Was it like, did I really like the number 3 so much that Venusaur was number 3, and I was like, I like Venusaur because he's number 3? Or was it just a coincidence that they crossed over between? I have no idea. And I don't know why I like 3 so much. And I don't like 3. Like, people don't have favorite numbers. Like, I guess if I was on if I was on Let's Make a Deal, and they have the showcase at the end where they're like, which curtain you want? Like, just because I love 3, I wouldn't be like, oh, 3, because that's my favorite number. It's not like a lucky number. I don't even know why I like it. I wouldn't choose 3 just off the bat.
Which number would you pick?
It depends. It's circumstantial. It really depends on the hints that Wayne Brady's dropping. If he's like, the hint behind door number 2 is you might get shot, then I'll be like, see, that would be a bad thing, but they're probably trying to spin it around. Then I might go with 2, unless the hint for 1 was like, it's a pile of feces. Then I might be like, ooh, might avoid that one. Anyway, we should move on to more questions. xXWolfMane says, Steven, has Karley ever played Earthbound? And if so, did she enjoy it? Mao, you actually need to answer this one, not me.
She played through on it, and that was about it.
Well, to be fair, that's about where a lot of people get to. And a lot of people that play Earthbound, they might get past the intro of the game.
Yeah.
It's an interest. I feel like the very beginning of Earthbound is a strong start. I actually think it's very interesting.
With the meteor?
Yes, I feel like that's all very interesting. You know, walk up to the meteor and do all that stuff. But I feel like when you get into On It, it's interesting because it's like, oh, it's an American town and it's not...
It's hard, though.
Well, the pace is slow. And it's really interesting to look at the pacing of Earthbound, especially the first few towns in comparison to the whole game, because On It drags on. Toshisan really drags on.
Happy.
With, yeah, Threed, you're in Threed forever because you have to take a detour to Winters. And then you, the desert and the Foresight area together is hell. Because you get through the desert in like 10 seconds, you're like, woo, then you're in Foresight and you're like, oh, I gotta go back to the desert. And then you do all this stuff, you lose Paula. And then as soon as you're done with that, the game just is like, you're in cities for like 10 minutes and you're like, what happened? What
Scrabble was a town?
Yeah, I know. You don't even get a chance to explore. Unless it's your first time and you're actually playing through and exploring, there's no reason to do that. So, what was I talking about? Oh, yeah. So that's actually a good reason for people to stop and On It, is because once you get into On It, the game really kind of hits you with how slow the beginning is going to be.
Yeah.
I think. It's not like you're moving around a lot. You have to grind a little bit in, like, the arcade.
With the sharks.
Yeah, so, I don't know. Especially if you're not used to RPGs.
And she's not.
Which is, I think that's probably the biggest issue, because if you are used to RPGs, Earthbound should be a walk in the park.
Mm-hmm.
Earthbound is a super, super easy game. If you're used to RPGs, you understand the mechanics and how you should play RPGs, Earthbound is easy. But if you don't normally play it, I guess it could be strange. Anyway, Z Trumpet 94 says, how did you decide which art was used for each Pokemon in your Leaf Green LP? Did everyone simply pick their favorites? The way we did it is, before the LP even started, there was a few Pokemon that me and Mal decided that we wanted to do personally. And we talked about that at the beginning. I said, you know, are there any Pokemon that you really want to do? I knew that I was going to pick Bulbasaur for my starter, and I wanted to do the Bulbasaur line. And I knew that at the beginning. And I think right off the bat, because we needed the starters done sooner, you did Charmander.
Yeah. And he's my favorite at 3.
Yeah, and then we hadn't actually that was before we decided to open it up to everybody. Yeah. So I did Squirtle. So we were looking at it because originally me and Mal were like, we could probably handle all of this. We could probably do all 150 monsters. And we did a few. We probably had 10 to 15. I did all
of Butterfree, and you did Pikachu, and...
Yeah, Jitters was done before the LP started. We probably had 10 or 15 done before I decided that we might be in trouble. I was like, wait, this is taking a long time to do each of these drawings.
Because we have one drawing tablet and it had to switch back and forth.
Yeah, we can't work at the same time, which isn't too big of an issue because I always have stuff I can be working on. But there was a lot of drawings, and it was like, oh, crap, this is a bad idea. So then I sent out a Facebook message. We included a lot of our friends and said, hey, we're going to be doing this LP. I think maybe even at that point, episode 1 might have been out.
Yeah.
So this was like...
Here are some examples.
I mean, it was a situation where it wasn't like months in advance we were like talking to people, getting the stuff together. It was a situation where it was... I think the first episode was out, and we were talking to our friends like, we need help. You know, we can't produce this fast enough to get it all done. And I know a lot of people have told me, you know, what you should have done is get all the monster drawings done beforehand. Well, yeah, okay, of course, but if we did that, then Pokemon would be coming out now. I mean, you have to kind of understand that with the amount of work that I'm already doing, it would take forever to even start the series. So at the time, it made more sense to just start it. We did like 10 or 15 and started it. And we sent it out to people, and then we...
They sort of said, I'm interested in doing this, and then we'd check it off.
At the time, pretty much everything was available. So it was just like, whatever you want to do it, but you have to do an entire line. So if you want to do Kangaskhan, good, but if you want to do Caterpie, then you have to do Caterpie, Metapod, and Butterfree. You have to do the entire evolutionary line, so the style is somewhat similar. So we sent that out to everybody. People started grabbing up names, and then we created a spreadsheet on Google Docs, and we kept track of everything as it was created and as it was seen in the LP. So that's how we
kept track. It was claimed.
Yeah, and as it was claimed, because we wrote down who claimed it. And there was a few issues throughout the last few months, where someone had claimed something and I'd be like, hey, we need that art, and then sometimes they were like, it's coming, and then it might have fallen through and we had to give it to someone else, or we had to do it at the last second. There's been times where, actually in the LP, and this is really weird, that I didn't go certain routes, or I didn't fight certain trainers, or I didn't evolve my Pokemon at a certain time, like I didn't train them to get enough experience because the drawings weren't ready. And it's interesting to hear that because there was times where we just didn't release episodes because drawings weren't ready. But then there was other times where I did different things than I would have normally done just because the drawings weren't ready. And it's because not only were we relying on ourselves, we were relying on other people to give them to us.
You also did all the bios.
And I also did all the bios. And I don't think people understand how long that takes. I normally spend like 30 to 40 minutes on any particular bio just because I want it to be really funny. So yeah, a lot of work in the LP. It's bittersweet now that it's ending. I'm really excited it's over. I'm really excited because it's like I want to move on to other projects. But at the same time, I'm proud of what I've done and what we've done and all of the work that's been put into it. So that was a much longer answer than you needed.
Proud of you too.
But, thank you. The next question is from Filipe Rodrigues, who is the same person that made the really sweet StephenVlog poster that you can download and print yourself. Mal, have you beaten completely Sonic 3 and Knuckles for the Mega Drive / Genesis?
I haven't.
Have you? You've played it.
I've played it.
But you haven't. It
wasn't mine. I borrowed it.
Yeah, and your game has always been Sonic 2.
Yes.
And it says, what are the games you remember the most for Genesis?
Crystal Ponytails, Sonic 2, Home Alone 2, Looney Tunes, Tiny Toons All Stars.
Tiny Toons.
What else did I have? Aladdin.
I think those are it. Whenever I visited Mal for
I never had many.
Whenever I visited Mal for the first time, she broke out the Genesis and we played it, and she showed me how she could get through Home Alone 2 in like no time flat.
20 minutes.
Yeah, it was just like do 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 do. I'm like, you should speedrun this game. Like, you're really good at it. She's like, I just remember it from my childhood. I'm like, okay. But yeah, you didn't have a whole lot of games.
No.
Even now, I don't feel like we own a whole lot of Genesis games. We own more than you ever owned.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I had a PS2 at this when they came out.
Yeah.
And I slowly got games for that. I think half the PS2 games are mine, I counted.
Really? Mm-hmm. It's a pretty good amount. There's another part of the question that says, Stephen, I'd ask you the same, but I know you missed out on Sega. So for you both, do you enjoy listening to chiptunes / 8-bit music?
I've listened to 8-bit a little bit, especially around Christmas time when I lived with Haley. Mm-hmm. She'd play 8-bit Christmas all the time.
It's a really weird love-hate relationship for me because I don't know. I'm pretty neutral on it because I've heard some really cool music and I've heard some really awful music. Like, generally, if you were to ask me that, I'd probably say it's not my thing. But I have heard songs that I really like. The soundtrack for the Scott Pilgrim indie game on the Xbox Live Marketplace, which is by Anamanaguchi, is really good. It's really, really good. And I don't have that game. I played the demo one time, but I have the soundtrack. I have no idea where that came from. I mean, I bought it. I don't know. I don't know how I got that. I think Alex gave it to me. Anyway, that soundtrack is great, and I really like some of the songs on there. But then I've heard other stuff, and I'm like, yeah. I got a friend who is really into chiptunes, and he posts stuff on Facebook like all the time. And I listen to it, and I generally don't like it. So I don't know how to work. Like, I don't know what my official feelings on that are. Also, I have a Weezer 8-bit album, and I really like that. But maybe it's just because I know the music. I'm not entirely sure. The last question comes from Calderoh, and he asks, back in the college vlogs, Dan managed to capture Stephen punching the wall as he slept. Now, have you seen any other similar sleepwalking / sleepboxing occurrences since you've been together?
Not sleepwalking or boxing, but you've talked.
I do talk in my sleep. I don't know if I always have, but you've claimed that I've talked in my sleep for some time. What is the most interesting thing I've ever said in my sleep?
There was one time Stephen was really upset because you wanted to take Rocco to Walmart, but then you were like, but we can't because then they'll take Rocco away. But Rocco needs to go to Walmart, and like you were really insistent on that.
Is that the time that involved pineapples of some sort?
No, that was the time you thought I stole your bicycle. Because then after that you started talking about how I stole your bicycle.
I don't know. It's not very common though.
No. It's when you're really tired and when you've just fallen asleep. And if I wake you up after, I'm like, so how are those pineapples or whatever you were talking about? And you're like, well, why do I know that? You don't quite get it at first.
I don't know. The human mind is an interesting
There's been times
thing.
where you've been asleep and I've tickled you, like with my hair, and like talked back to you, like, Stephen, there's a spider. And you're like, oh, where is it?
Yeah, but it only happens when I'm like really tired.
Yeah.
Really, like, because otherwise I think I just wake up. Anyway, that's the Q&A for this month. If you're not sure how this works, you think of an interesting question and you put it down below. But the question has to be interesting or we won't read it. Especially if it's been asked before. And it's hard for people that are newer to the Q&As. But if you've been around for a while and you see a question that's been asked and you can tell someone when it was answered, I know people it's easy for people to be like, oh, well, this has already been answered. But if you can tell them like, oh, this was answered in, the November 2012 Q&A, then they can at least go see that. Or this vlog. Like, if you can give someone information, that would be much more helpful than just being like, oh, that was answered. Because then that person is left with like, well, what happened? Like, what do I do? There's a lot of material to watch, so we don't expect you to see everything. And we do revisit questions from time to time, but we try not to if we can avoid it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Leave more questions down below, and we will get to them at the end of April.
Which is May's Q&A.
Which is May's Q&A, because we changed how we did everything, and you guys have to be okay with it. And that's why there's not a December 2012 Q&A. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next month.